Hello, I'm Colton Grest, founder and CEO of Coltonian Space Program, and today I have our 2023 Coltonian Space Program presentation. Today's presentation will have multiple parts to it, but the first part is vehicles. Currently, we are in the process of developing three signature vehicles. First of which being the Kolit 0.1. It has a diameter of 1.8 meters and a height of 31.5 meters. So it's a pretty mid mid to small size rocket. It's a starting point. It'll have one Swivel 1A engine, which is our first ever true engine we've developed. Swivel 1A doesn't even have gimbal features, which is why we've put high emphasis on the RCS ports. Which you see, I'll bring out my mouse pointer here. You can see we have three sets of four RCS ports, and those are very important. If even one of them was to fail on, say the ascent burn, it could cause issues with attitude control. So very high emphasis on that. But let's move on to later on swivel engine, swivel 1B or the swivel 2 engine. It does have gimbal, which means it can turn and steer the rocket. So if one of those ports or two or three, whatever, goes out, the engine can, I guess, up its control authority to assist. For the payload, there's 10 tons to low Earth orbit, 7 tons to geosynchronous orbit. Basically, just meaning that that's the amount, not the amount that it could fit in the payload bay, but the amount it could fit in the payload bay and still get to low Earth orbit or geosynchronous orbit. So technically, we could fit more, but it would just mean not going to orbit. As far as stages are concerned, there's two stages. There's a lower stage and an upper stage. The lower stage, also known as the booster, or first stage, is powered by the Swivel 1A engine. I forgot to mention this, but on the upper stage, it is powered by one VAC-01 engine. Uh, but that is very, up for interpretation. We may change that to our VAC-02 engine as it's more sophisticated, but that currently is only in the concept phase, whereas the Kolit rocket is actually starting up some production. So I don't think we'd be able to get the VAC-02 engine ready by the time the first Kolit 0.1s are to fly. Now, the stage separation method for this one is the traditional explosive bolts that separate the two stages, but you'll see here in a second that that is not the same for all of our three vehicles. And the estimated time to come online is mid to late 2023. Now this, we'll touch more on the timeline later on in the presentation, but you could kind of put these, these dates as with a grain of salt, because they're definitely subject to change, which is why I said mid to late instead of exact months. But you'll see in a timeline, it's a fairly optimal timeline later on. Now the Kolit 0.5, which is our second rocket. So this is the first one that we have not shown off. This is brand new. The Kolit 1 in the previous video, which was the Kolit 1 overview, that's now called the Kolit 0.1. So if you're wondering why the Kolit 0.1 is very similar to the Kolit 1 from the presentation before, that's the reason. Okay, the diameter of the Kolit 0.5 is 2.7 meters on the lower stage, the first stage, and 1.8 meters on the second stage. Now in the photo below, there's a worker in the render. Not quite sure why that's there. It's definitely not to scale. Probably in the background somewhere, accidentally in the render, for some reason. It's just, I guess, a 3D model of a worker walking near it. You'll see more about that in a later video, possibly with a Kolit 0.5 presentation, overview video, whatever you would like to call it, that kind of more visualizes what the Kolit 0.5 truly is. So next, its height is 36 meters, and it is comprised of two parts, two stages, one of which being quite literally just a Kolit 0.1 upper stage and a Kolit 1 lower stage with some minor differences, including an adapter stage that allows the two parts to aerodynamically coexist, compared to, just randomly going out to 2.7 meters. Instead, there's kind of a adapter. For the engines for it, it's the same, the VAC-1/VAC-2 engine on the upper stage as the Kolit 0.1, but on the lower stage, booster, it'll have two Phobos engines. Now, the Phobos engines are likely to not be used on any other rockets than the Kolit 0.5. They had very specific qualifications for the Kolit 0.5, and what happened was our newer Swivel 2 engines were meant to fly on the Kolit 0.5, but sadly, 2 Swivel 2 engines would not have been enough for it to take off, and 3 Swivel 2 engines would have been too much, and it would have likely led to intense structural pressures and things like that could damage it on the way up on the ascent burn. That's not what we want. So we went with the safe option, and we designed some engines that are not too powerful, but not, like the 2 Swivel 2 engines, which would have been not powerful enough. So, it's kind of the Goldilocks zone of engines. It's just right for the rocket. But sadly, that means we're not going to be able to use them on anything else, but that's okay because they're very interesting design. For payload-wise, it's 13 tons to LEO and 9 tons to geosynchronous orbit. Now that uses up nearly all of the payload space in the payload bay, just a little bit less. But similar to the Kolit 0.1, but on a much smaller scale. It could have more, but it's just not going to, make it to orbit. So those are the adjusted numbers that could fit as a maximum in the payload bay. Stage separation method, once again, traditional explosive bolts, that's it. And the estimated time, late 2023 to early 2024. Next up is the Kolit 1. Now, immediately, if you look at the design of the rocket, you can see there's definitely some differences compared to the previous two. So diameter is 2.7, so same as the booster on the Kolit 0.5, and that's because it quite literally is the same, just with different engines and a different stage separation method, and the adapter is turned into a full diameter portion of the booster. The height is 44.7 meters. Once again, some of these numbers, mainly the height, are subject to change depending on certain issues we may see on ground testing. For the engine, it's 3 Swivel 2 engines, because we believe that by the time the Kolit 1 is ready to fly, we will have Swivel 2 engines ready. And Swivel 2 engines are the ones, if you recall, the ones that can gimbal. The Kolit 1, the Swivel 1B engines can also gimbal, but they have far less thrust as the Swivel 2 engines. Payload is 15 tons to low Earth orbit and 10 tons to geosynchronous orbit. So that uses up, once again, smaller portion of the possible payload that we could have, but that's just so that it can make it to LEO and geosynchronous orbit without running out of fuel and not making it. 2 stages, but here's the interesting part. Stage separation method is hot staging. We want to test this out with the Kolit 1 because it could prove for other rockets, but we have explosive bolt inner stages ready if we need to use them. But we're going to test out the hot staging, but we have options we can swap, and we can just take off the hot staging adapter and put on a explosive bolt staging system if the hot staging does not go well. And the estimated time to come online is early to mid 2024. And here is some Kolit 2 concept art, because the Kolit 2, literally, we have not finished the design quite yet. We've got some nice photos of what it could look like. Not photos, renders of what it could look like. There's a few different versions, including some odder looking second stages. But we might see some, extended videos of these coming shortly after the Kolit 1. but currently Kolit 2 isn't far past the concept phase, so we're just gonna skip over this because these most likely will be pretty similar to the final product, but um, don't trust them fully. Here, next up is the facilities. We have a total of 4 facilities as of right now, 2 of which are fully slash semi-operational, and then 2 which are still in the construction phase. So the first and our main site is the Marty, Texas development and testing site for the Kolit 0.1, 0.5, and Kolit 1 for sure. Possibly some Kolit 2 parts could be constructed here, but I'll show you later that it is in some different places. So you can see some different parts of the facility. You can see our low bay in the first photo over here. This is for constructing our stages, and it is tall enough to fit an entire Kolit 1 rocket or Kolit 0.1 rocket inside of it. But once we go to the Kolit 1, we're going to have to use this still under construction. You can kind of see it in the corner there, the mid bay, which is slightly bigger. We're going to work our way up. We already have plans for bigger ones just to fit the Kolit 2 in. Although we may, make some exceptions because vertical construction isn't as easy as, horizontal construction for just the buildings. Vehicles, it's probably easier in a vertical construction setting. And here you can see our small factory. Just got some engines and things laid out there. Some test tanks, payload things set up there. And here you can see our facilities. This is our testing facility for engine testing and vehicle testing. The GSE isn't fully readied, but we got some pipes and things already set up. Cranes working on it 24/7. Next up is the Key Largo, Florida Launch Complex and Large Vehicle Construction. So in this photo, you can kind of see what the production site for the Kolit 2 will look like. So this is just for one of the stages. This is for the booster for the Kolit 2. And that's what it'll be used for. But we will expand, make some roads and different things. And over here you can see how our launch pad is going. And so far, not much. Just some dirt and gravel set up here. Some little berms set up along the side to deflect flames away from the grass. And we've got in the flame trench under construction there. Next up is the Arizona Engine Testing Facility. You see a pretty low-res photo here. There's not much there, just some, pretty basic construction. But eventually it will be a host for engine testing. We've got some GSE tanks and, a little bit of the test stand there. And you can also see the runway where we fly the vehicles in and out with larger planes that can hold large amounts of cargo. So next up is the final facility, and so far we don't have any plans for most of these except for the Slick 2 here, Space Launch Complex 2 for the Kobani, Texas launch facilities. Space Launch Complex 2 will likely be used for swivel testing or swivel engines, which we are actually, opening a small private company known as Swivel Space, which just primarily deals with the engines for the rockets. Slick 3 launch pad, Slick 1 launch pad. We're not sure what they'll launch, but likely larger rockets than the Kolit 2, whatever it ends up being. Kolit 3, Kolit 4, Kolit 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 if we end up getting that far, but, likely it'll probably just be like 3 and 4. Next up is our 2023 launch roadmap. This is kind of the last thing for the presentation. This is just a basic timeline of our optimistic approach to what it could be like. We have some room for error because we don't expect the first few Kolit 1 tests to go perfectly. We expect some boundaries to be pushed, and we'll find out failure modes, things like that. Fix them up for the Kolit 5, Kolit 0.5, and the Kolit 1. So in August, we hope that we can get static fires of both Kolit 1 or 0.1 stages. In September, we hope we can get the Kolit 0.1 first stage burn test. What that is it's basically we take a Kolit 0.1 first stage, we put a mass simulator on the top with flight computers and an aerodynamic nose cone on top to kind of demonstrate what it would be like for a second stage to be on top, and mainly to test that stage separation can be done, and that we don't have to up the power of the explosive bolts for stage separation. And it also gives the booster a good benchmark test for its first stage burn. And we also see if we can possibly target a location for the booster to crash into. Our flight profile will automatically make it crash into a field, but we'll try to do a burn that'll make it crash into a different field. Still no possibility of damage to property or anything of that sort. Marty, Texas is fairly remote and doesn't have a lot of population near it, and the launch facility is kind of more in the rural region of Marty, Texas. So there's no worry for anything to go wrong there. In October, we hope to get some Kolit 0.1 flight tests in, and the Kolit 0.5 static fires to get the Kolit 0.5, going. And then in November, we hope to get some Kolit 0.5 test flights in. And in, end of November, early December, some Kolit 0.5 payload tests. And we hope that at least by late December, early January, we could get some Kolit 1 static fires. I mean, that's pretty much what we want by the end of the year. The Kolit 0.1 and the Kolit 0.5 don't matter as much as the Kolit 1, because the Kolit 1 is going to be our workforce rocket until we can get the Kolit 2 and beyond going. So that pretty much sums it up for this presentation. This shows what we're going to be doing for the rest of 2023. So next time, I guess we'll be seeing some static fires of both Kolit 1 stage 0.1 stages. But till then, this is I guess some news being dropped. I think that's about it. Nothing much else to say. Good luck to Kolits, Kolit 0.1, Kolit 0.5, Kolit 1 on their tests. And with that said, goodbye.